Science has been responsible for some of the greatest discoveries and advancements that have changed the course of human history.
Can you believe it? Can you realize that all of us, have actually begun the exploration of another world?
However, in the quest of pushing limits, scientists can come up with some really horrific experiments. Today, let's look at some of the most bizarre experiments ever conducted. My name is Siddharth and you're watching The World of Science.
Science is reckless.
Totally!
What we're looking for is how everything works. What makes everything?
We all know that we have evolved from apes, right? But can you think of a hybrid organism that combines both humans and apes? The Soviet Union allegedly tried to breed a human and a chimpanzee to create a hybrid organism called Humanzee or Humanzee. Either way, ugh. This was unbelievable for many, but after the collapse of the USSR, the secret documents regarding the experiment were released. Who knew the Soviets were such big fans of the Planet of the Apes, right? Dr. Ilya Ivanov, the Soviet biologist who came up with this brilliant idea, went to Africa in the 1920s to execute his plan. Unfortunately, he couldn't find any human volunteers for this task and his dreams shattered. Later on, he tried to impregnate an orangutan named Tarzan with human sperm, and by the way, that experiment failed as well. Thank God. Later on in 1960, supposedly in China, a female chimpanzee was impregnated with human sperm. But then that experiment, along with many other experiments, were cancelled due to Mao's Cultural Revolution, which sent many scientists for farm labor. This experiment is an example of the limit crossed by the human imagination. They were ready to take the concept of evolution to the extreme and recreate mythical human-animal hybrid demons in reality. And if you think that was gruesome, wait until you hear the next one. In the early 20th century, several experiments were being performed on animals for head transplantation that resulted in the death of many animals. Transplanting an organ is a very complicated process that requires management of immune responses, a constant flow of blood, and overseeing the nervous system. And when it comes to the human brain, the process is far more dangerous and close to impossible. There are thousands of nerves, and every nerve coming out of the head has to be connected to the spinal cord. Any failure in any of the processes can ultimately result in the death of the organism. French surgeon Alexis Carrel and American physiologist Charles Claude Guthrie developed a surgical method to connect blood vessels while transplanting the organs of a body. And they tried to attach the head of one dog to the body of another, and that resulted in the death of both the dogs. In 1954, Soviet surgeon Vladimir Demikhov performed an experiment where he grafted the head and the upper body of one dog to the body of another dog, and this time the subject survived for 29 days. Researchers repeated this experiment in 2012, but this time they grafted the head of a mouse to the body of another, and the mouse survived for 6 months. Now, this might be an improvement, but it's still a very bizarre experiment and quite a nightmare to imagine. Now let's talk about the power of intention. Quantum physics and the debate of consciousness have been going on for a decade now, and there are so many different interpretations. According to John von Neumann's interpretation, human consciousness causes the collapse of the wave function of particles. This means that the human intention has the power to manipulate events happening anywhere. If we consider this widely accepted interpretation, then we also have to accept the existence of universal consciousness, and human consciousness might be a mere part of it. If this is true, then the entire humanity is connected at a supramental level, and one's intention has the power to manipulate events happening anywhere. Parapsychologist Dean Radin did some experiments to demonstrate this theory. One of his experiments was to show how the intention of people can affect the behavior of quantum particles. In his case, he picked the infamous O.J. Simpson trial in 1994-95 and hypothesized that the intensity of the courtroom drama would affect the intention of the people watching it. The intensity of the courtroom was measured as a function of time in a separate laboratory. Change in randomness in quantum particles was measured through random number generators. It basically generates a truly random sequence of zeros and ones based on the inherent randomness of quantum events. The idea was that if the human intention has the power to affect events, then the collective intention of the people watching the trial could affect the outcome of the random number generator. He found out that when the courtroom drama was the most intense, the outcome of the random number generator shifted from randomness to ordered value. This suggests that the intention of people watching the trial affected the randomness measured by the random number generator, providing evidence that intention can affect events. However, these results have been challenged by many scientists, and the relationship between intention and events is still not clear. By the way, is our universe really conscious? We have made a detailed video on this explaining everything. You can check it out on our channel by clicking here. During World War II, the Imperial Japanese Army created a secret biological and chemical warfare research unit known as Unit 731. The Japanese were responsible for some of the most heinous crimes, including bizarre experiments on humans and animal subjects. And if you thought Nazis were bad, wait until you hear about these guys. Unit 731 was like a horror movie come to life. They conducted experiments on human beings like rats in a lab to an extent that it would intimidate even the most cold-blooded killers. They deliberately infected people with deadly diseases like anthrax, cholera, and plague just to see how long would it take for them to die. And when things got boring, they switched to testing flamethrowers on innocent civilians. It got even worse when they bred plague-infected fleas and released them over cities in China, causing epidemics that killed tens of thousands of people. They tortured their victims with deadly X-rays and left people with no food and water to study the effects while they were dying of starvation. What's truly disappointing is that the people involved in these acts of brutality were never brought to justice. In fact, the United States welcomed these Nazi and fascist war criminals under Operation Paperclip and Bloodstone in exchange for their scientific data. Who cares if they've killed millions of innocent people? Science is science, right? According to veterans, even the mission to the moon was successful because of a Nazi war criminal that was accepted by the USA. Science is a double-edged sword, my friends. It can be used for good or evil depending on how it is wielded. And it is our responsibility to ensure that it is used for the betterment of humanity, not its destruction. And if anyone uses it for evil purposes, we'll just nicely ask them to stop. Yeah, I'm sure it'll work. Otherwise, who knows, we might just end up with another Unit 731 on our hands. And that's a horror story nobody wants to live through. So, did you enjoy this video? Let us know in the comments. Make sure you subscribe to the World of Science. Until next time, stay scientific and responsible.